You're walking in the woods. There's no one around and your phone is dead. Out of the corner of your eye, you spot him.
Hello there, my name is Graham, and today we're going to be taking a wee look at Frozen Footsteps, found in Occam's Razor, a modern-day scenario collection with a twist by Stygain Fox. Here we dive deep into old horror tropes, conspiracies, and cannibalism as we try to find a missing lawyer with an obsession with all things occult. If you love your B-movie hillbillies and cannibals, you're in for a treat, as this scenario has them in buckets. Isn't without its issues, but we enjoyed this one for what it was, pure schlock. Taking its beats from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Wrong Turn, and Hills Have Eyes, this slow burn opener is soon raising the stakes in the frozen forests around Lake Superior in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, as we discover the descendants of an isolated, inbred family. So, what is Frozen Footsteps all about? We start back in the 1700s as a raged Phil Trapper kills his wife, fleeing on a boat into the vastness of Lake Superior. Set adrift for days, he and his two sons, who he's taken with him, are starving on the open water. Becoming ravenous by the time they make landfall, they take the next person they see, devouring him and starting their journey into cannibalism. With their victim's wife and daughter abducted into the new family as they make their home deep in the forests, generation after generation of kidnapping, killing, and inbreeding, we make our way into the 21st century and the story proper. Here in the modern day, a defence lawyer named David Bateman has a love for all things occult and has been finding links from all the incidents of cannibalism around the world have been linked back to one entity, the Windwalker. With the recent discovery of mass graves to the north, with signs of cannibalism and the freak cold snaps, he is packed up and told no one where he's going as he heads out to test out his theory. Missing a lunch date and not answering the phone, after several days, you, his friends, the investigators, are worried and head out to find him. I will say this scenario is front-loaded with a few problems here and there that might cause it to stumble out of the gate. As Bateman is a lawyer with commitments, it makes little sense for him to tell no one where he is going, and again, there's no reason to hide the fact he's going there. Secondly, the hook is pretty weak, and your players will really have to buy into the investment of Bateman going missing and their motivation for going so far to find this man. The most mundane opening possible leads them even further, where they spot a knocked over lamp in his house and decide to break in. That is a little reckless and a little bit far-fetched for friends who have missed an appointment for lunch. It seems like an unlikely next step. Changing up the hook a little bit, I cut out the lawyer angle and focused solely on David being a conspiracy theory nut that runs a dedicated and popular Fortean blog that is known for pulling dangerous and often stupid stunts. So the police would downplay his disappearance, and any rumours flying around on the internet would only just play into speculation of what he's up to next. Changing up David to the stereotypical basement dweller living under his mother's house, we can get a nice hook indeed, with the mother being frantic, knowing her son is innocent and claiming this isn't one of his silly pranks. From there, we can exchange his house for that basement and have it filled with some nasty crap you'd expect to find from a male living alone in his own filth. This made the hook a little bit more sexy than just a mundane missing lawyer friend with a knocked over lamp, and we can go full on conspiracy theory from here on out, with the mother taking them on a tour de force of this horrible basement. Once inside David's house, the focus shifts onto several occult books which can be found in David's possession. It's not quite clear if this should shock the investigators being his friend or not, but I'm guessing it isn't from the way the scenario was written, but it's never specifically said. They'll also have access to his computer, which will open up the investigation proper, showing that he's been researching the Wendigo and the local Indian tribe up in the northern frozen wastes. Trying to link this into a recent found mass grave with signs of cannibalism, Bateham has gone one step further and taken himself up there to have a look for himself. I did, however, go for that conspiracy theory angle, and this should be my basement, so I filled this with dust and candy wrappers, making everyone pick through the disgusting mess one footstep at a time and find some very odd things indeed. I went ahead and tarted this area up with a few little extra finds, a freezer filled with Tupperware, all dated and numbered with locations where David had been asking his blog fans to do research on cannibals, collecting stool samples from suspects. In amongst them, I also had a fake Sasquatch arm which had been sent to him by a fan and is covered in freezer burn and looks rather real. This is to add a bit of magic and mythos to the actual campaign early and get people thinking that it might not actually be cannibals, which I think it's important not to hit the nail on the head quite too soon, as there needs to be some sort of element of doubt there. On top of all this, I had some logs on his computer for a cannibal forum for those who wish to roleplay as cannibals and their dinners, with some more sinister, serious posting going on in the background. Here they can pick up some tips on what he was up to and really find out what he was going to do. Go up to this grave site and have a look around to confirm his theories. You can also add in a few people getting a little too close, and you can have them phones ring throughout the scenario with odd messages from people on the forum getting hold of their number and asking them out for dinner. But from all intents and purposes, they should be phoning the campground which David is staying at and talking to Ralph Cotton and confirming his bookings and that he did indeed arrive. However, he's not been seen in a couple of days, and his car is parked out front. Whether or not this is a good reason for the entire crew to take an excursion north and go find him is highly debatable. I think phoning the local police and pointing them towards his cabin is probably the more prudent option, even if there aren't anyone in the local area. It's a 27-mile drive to the nearest station after all. Don't let the journey up to Brockway Bay go to waste, and it can be spent well researching and reading up about the mass grave and all the other nice things they found in Bateham's house, catching up on his own research and the links he has found to the Wendigo and to the mythos at large, and even his own tome called the Ithaca Mythos, Bateman's unfinished manuscript, which can be found while rooting around in his room. If you want to include it, that is, because this is an Occam Razor scenario and these things are mythos free by design, which is pretty cool in itself. But you can, however, throw in a little bit of a curveball and add the mythos, and this is the hook here for it. It is quite nice and does go with the theme very well. So it's up to you if you want to include this or not. But reading this in the journey up does actually give you the opportunity for one of the players to go and say on a plane or in a car, throwing themselves out a window or trying to open a door, which sounds like a good scene to me. So I'd probably even have this mythos book in here, even if it leads nowhere. On arrival to Brockway Bay, there's about 3 or so avenues of inquiry they can actually look into. One, however, I would give straight away as they drive into town, which is a Native American totem pole. They can stop at this and have a read of an ancient plaque which has an undescribed text on it that they can't quite read. You're meant to fake a Cthulhu mythos roll here or a cult and have the investigators think this is Yog-Sothoth somehow. This is a bit of a weird one for me because it seems to come out of the blue, and it would be much better if this was actually the Windwalker again, Ithaca, and you could have the wind wailing and the snow start to fall when they actually have that realization for a little bit of extra drama. It's all happenstance, or perhaps it's not, to the investigators, but hopefully they'll buy into their own delusions. This will leave us with 2 areas of investigation: the loggers' camp where the mass grave was found, and the cabins where David went missing. I would also have the town itself, Brockway Bay, be a bit of a character with a population of all 200 people. This is a sleepy place where not many people come to visit at all. Investigators exploring this town could see the locals divided within people who wish to encourage the tourism and are all pleasantries and nice no matter what, and those who loathe the intrusion of the city folks, to add a layer of depth and flavour to these people, and hostility always builds drama and mistrust, and I feel that's a nice good counterpoint to this small village. Always casually describe the snow in the background and its beauty as it layers itself 2 inches, then 3, then perhaps 6, as they go around collecting supplies and head off to the cabins. You'll need this later on to isolate them in this place, and so the cannibals can get a good bite of them without the, police getting involved a little too early. Once at the log cabins, we meet a cluster of tourists which they can get to know, as well as the owner itself. A hulking man who is easily intimidated, which can make for some fun scenes, with the investigators accidentally intimidating him and him going for a gun perhaps, or when they're trying to access Batham's cabin or car. It's not going to go well at all. I really try to build empathy for some of the people in the campsite and village, though, so that when shit gets real, the investigators have some empathy and really wish to go and save them from the strife they're in, and really place themselves in that mayhem. The car that can be found here that's been left lying is not very interesting at all and offers just a basic red herring, which can be ignored. However, the Bateman cabin has a story to tell. It is here where we start to turn up the threat and really get to the crux of the matter. Bateman has broken into the logging camp, found his way to the grave site, and been poking around, only to be discovered by the cannibal family and chased back to his cabin. Here he was confronted and killed, hung upside down in the shower. He was drained of blood for dinner, and they are now waiting in the woods, watching to see if anyone had noticed. And here comes our plucky investigators right into their trap. While the cannibal family sits and watches from outside in the snow, our investigators head in and find the scene of carnage. They'll find drips of blood on the floor, beds overturned, luggage lying out, and notepads on the desk. It seems a little odd that he chose to isolate himself in the cabin again, but there you go. If they open the shower, they'll find the slick with blood, and that should be your first warning that something is up. It's at this point the investigators will definitely phone the police, and you better have been building that snow, because they are 27 miles away, and in that conditions it's going to take them about 5 to 6 hours to get there, if they do at all. When in the cabin, they can find a few interesting things. One handout which will describe his last efforts to find the cannibals as he jumps the fence to the logging camp and goes in search of the mass grave. There's also evidence of a mythos item here. Whether that's real or not is up to you, and when they find his corpse, they can probably pluck it from him, and it could be of some use. Personally, I would have had the cannibals clean up the shower at least, so there's only the first aid kit and some blood on the floor to find, as once they actually find everything is a mess, this could get ugly indeed, and they may just run and refuse to engage. It's down to your players. They should engage, and they should lean into the horror and the stupidity of what they're about to do, but some players just are too dead set against that to actually have a good time here, and will sort of back out and become protective of their PC. I did for one group have a cannibal hiding in the shower being interrupted while trying to clean up the crime scene. He is standing there with the shower curtain shut, holding a chainsaw, hoping they'll go away, with his friends outside waiting for him. This is a great place to kick off should the investigators not want to engage. Just go ham and start killing right here and now. As soon as they draw back that curtain, rev that chainsaw, and off you go. I almost killed the investigator outright here by doing this, and it was bloody mayhem. For the second group though, I chose not to have the cannibal in the shower and chose to take a more straight-laced approach to this, having it more low-key, so they would actually go to the logging cabin and try that out. Should they leave the cabin hungry to investigate still, they should spot people in the woods shifting around in the snow blizzard, and perhaps some of those other tourists have gone missing, finding their shoe lying in the snow, or perhaps a spray of blood and some drag marks as they're pulled back into the woods. The other natural avenue of investigation is the logging camp and the grave site, where the bones have been found chewed and gnawed. They will find the fences high here, and there will be two guards, Oscar and Stephanie, which are nods to the heads of two of the third-party companies. And there's not much else to find here. Heading up to the grave site, if they get past the guards and the fence, they'll just find Bateman's phone in the snow and footsteps around it. With the snow lying, however, and building, it is unlikely they'd even find those easily. And from there, there's not much else to do. I had the guards playing pranks on the investigators, trying to scare them. Having so many YouTubers and bloggers trying to break into the lumber mills to try and see this mass grave, they've come up with a scheme of scaring any poor hapless soul they come across, leading them deep into the woods where another one would be waiting. Have the guard that captures them whisper into his walkie-talkie, trying to keep his tone low, looking back and forward to anyone he catches coming over the fence as he sets up his mate, making them get into the Sasquatch costume so he can get these punks scared when he pulls them up and takes them deep into the wood, just for shits and giggles. With that, they should be on edge and more than likely try to shoot one of the guard or the Sasquatch, killing an innocent, which is always good to add into the mix. So, if they come here last, this is where you're going to ambush them and drag them off, aping what happened to Bateman, and perhaps even getting a chase through the forest. If the investigators are clued in, they'll arm themselves to the back teeth, and one of my groups did this coming into town like Rambo's lost family. I have to say that I lacked a little bit of willing to play the victim there, kind of killed some of the fun for me at least. And brushing off the idea that cannibals in the woods are a myth is a much more fun idea for the investigators to grapple with. The second group did this with minimum weapons, and that's where the scenario really shined. If they do come heavily armed though, the bear traps in the woods are your friend. Oh yes, there's bear traps under that snow, and this makes excellent drama as even the most heavily armed person is not expecting to stand in one. This will force the party to split as the cannibals move in and start to chase, leaving anyone that's chained to the ground. This is a hungry family and they've been doing this for a long time, and they're not the smartest in the drawer, but they definitely know how to take someone out. The attack itself should be smart and getting away with it, so they'll work in groups and let the traps do all the heavy lifting. I feel Wrong Turn is definitely required watching for this one to really get into the idea of how a close family unit would go around trapping a woods. If you want to hit that mythos angle with the cannibals, I would have them pause every so often, listening to the howling winds as the blizzard starts to kick up even more, taking orders directly from Ithaca itself, or so it would seem. You could definitely have some idols that are strewn about or even carved into the rock faces. In the aftermath of this attack, the scenario does make the assumption the investigators won and are willing to go track down their attackers in the caves and save anyone who is dragged away. I think it's a little bit of a mistake, as most sane people would run away and assume that those taken would be dead and wait for the authorities. But with the heavy snow and giving them a short win here, any survivors running back to the cave, they might be emboldened to do exactly that. So play up their actual heroism here as a false hope and let them go after, taking a few out and maybe even one hostage. Again, aping Wrong Turn, with them being led into traps as they're told where to go to find whoever was taken. Those that are captured, however, will be taken to the cave, a harrowing place. They'll see heads on spikes and notice poor Bateman is one of them, even speculating how they might even go out themselves. If anyone is captured and dragged here, I would have them put on the butcher block almost immediately, hacking off one of their limbs in the most brutal way possible, dressing that wound and closing it, staunching the bleeding. They'll be thrown in a cage to watch their arm be cooked and fed back to them. A really horrifying situation for them to find themselves in as they're introduced to Papa, the patriarch of the family. The family themselves are very colourful and there's a lot of depth given to them, even though it is a very tropey, schlock-like scenario, and I do love some of the characters that are here. They will also find in the caves lots of victims waiting to be eaten, which kind of adds that element of stress, having to maybe try and get these people out, or leaving them behind, getting that gut-wrenching guilt as they alone climb out and escape. Should this happen, you should fill the nights with howls and cannibals as they trudge through the snow and hunt them. I had a great scene here where two characters were captured and managed to escape to run into the arms of those trying to find them, only with the cannibals in hot pursuit for the last showdown. I think this was a really good scene and it really sells this scenario for me and really seals the deal. There's a real passion for horror here and it doesn't pull its punches, and this should be your last pitch battle. You should go out in a blaze of glory with Papa staggering to his death, almost just barely not managing to kill the last of them. Or perhaps he'll drag them all back and just prop them up for dinner. Overall, this is a fun scenario that's got a few hiccups here and there in the investigation leading up to it. It can come across as a little bland, with everyone knowing exactly what's going on and they're just waiting for the axe to fall. So I would give it some love, interesting NPCs in the towns, and especially in the cabins with annoying tourists and people they actually like and will probably try and save. I might even consider cutting out the entire start and having the PCs be park rangers, giving them extra motivations to try and find Bateman, as it's their bloody job. But this is going to cut the scenario down somewhat. But whatever you do, I'm pretty sure you're going to have fun with this one. The end is absolutely a bloody massacre. Until next time, enjoy.